Well, Andrew, it has been a challenging time for the royal family. So I want to ask you in the first place, when is the new edition, the paperback edition, coming with new revelations that you have advanced for everyone?
Yes, the new edition comes out in Britain and America on 21st of May. It's another 8 to 10,000 words of material relaying the new timeline. So all the Epstein releases, the impact on the royal family, the stripping of titles, the moving to Sandringham. So that's all covered. And within that, I've included new material that I have either had since the book came out, or I had and it didn't go in, for example, for legal reasons. So on basically all of them, but particularly on the daughters and their business activities, more on his time as a trade envoy, more explanation sometimes of some of the episodes in the Epstein releases relating, for example, to Andrew sharing confidential information as a trade envoy. There's more on their private lives. I've got, for example, members of staff who didn't speak to me before, talking about the weird and wacky world of Fergie. So yeah, I think it's rich. I mean, people said before there was a headline on every page, and I think we've managed to do that again. Yes, I've certainly added more on the daughters. I mean, the position on them seems to have changed. Having been invited to Sandringham at Christmas, they're now being kind of cut away from the family. They're not going to be allowed to go to Ascot. And I am talking about their business activities in the Middle East, the fact that their charities are being investigated, that they've raised money but not spent it. If it's been spent, it's been spent on salaries. So I think it will open up fresh new areas of investigation. And I think also raise questions about how deeply involved the daughters were, not just with Epstein, but also with their parents' business activities. The narrative that's been put out by their PR people is that they are collateral damage, they're innocents. I knew that wasn't the case. I was told by my publishers to not go hard on the children before, but I think we have plenty of evidence now that they were involved. And I think that there is a very strong case to be made to hold them responsible too, or to be held to account too. So yes, they will be in the new material. And I'm finding new stuff almost every day on the children's activities and the way that their charities are run, which is very similar to the parents, really to launder their reputations, to enhance their social life, and to help them with their business activities.
So did you know all the time that Andrew has more sharing with Epstein than just their perversions? So you did know what is being investigated now by the Met Police and the authorities.
Well, I knew that Epstein was deeply involved with Andrew's business activities. I didn't know the extent of it. I had suspicions. So we've got more detail in the Epstein releases. I think what's so powerful is we have literally, emails being forwarded shortly after they arrived. We can see the sort of nuts and bolts of how it operated in a way that me just interviewing people couldn't really get. So it's added a lot more detail to information I had and reinforced many of the suspicions I had. But I think people have got slightly sort of sidelined by the Virginia Giuffre story and the sex trafficking, and actually the whole story of the business networks that were operating, that how Epstein was using Andrew's role as a trade envoy, the ways that pitch at the palace was being used to earn money for Andrew. These things emerged, I think, in much more detail as a result of these recent disclosures.
But the fact remains that he is not being investigated by Virginia Giuffre's allegation. It seems that the only way to get justice for her or other victims is through the political engagement or selling secrets of the states to a foreign mogul. So, what do you think about this? What is worst?
I think it's much easier to bring charges on the financial crimes. And that's we've got lots of detail of that in the Epstein revelations. I don't think we should discard the idea of sex trafficking charges also being laid at him. I think it's a much harder case to make because we've got to find the woman, we've got to show that they were trafficked, they've got to be prepared to talk. So the sexual crimes are always much more difficult to prosecute, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to try. The problem is that, a lot of these women remain anonymous. We don't have their names from the flight logs. They may well not want to come forward. They're now moved on in their lives. So I think that's going to be trickier. I think the fact that the police are looking at corruption charges rather than misconduct in public office, I think is a good sign. I think that's a much easier case to make. And there are increasing discussions about whether he's committed treason, that he is not just given away sensitive commercial information, but he's actually given away secrets. And I think there is a strong case for a charge of treason to be laid against him. And that is clearly a very serious offence. We have to slightly take our lead from what they do with Peter Mandelson. If they charge Peter Mandelson, who has committed very many of the same sorts of crimes, then they will have to charge Andrew and they will have to use the same charges.
And do you think Andrew will, both Mandelson and Andrew will be set in prison once? Do you see that happening in the near future?
A lot of us hope that they will be held to account and face justice. I think there's several obstacles in the way. One is that whether it's sex trafficking or it's the financial misdemeanors, the Crown Prosecution Service here will say that there's too high a bar that to pass, it will be difficult to secure a conviction, and therefore they don't have enough evidence. They may say that Andrew isn't going to get a fair trial. They may claim that he wasn't a public official and therefore he can't be charged with misconduct, for example. So I think there are a lot of excuses that could be put forward, and we're already being prepared for them by some of the material that's been leaked. I think there would be a public outcry if that happened, and I think the police are aware of that. Other problem is that King Juan Carlos of Spain was up on charges of corruption, and he made basically a flit to the Middle East, and that avoided him standing trial. And that, I suspect, is the most likely scenario with Andrew. Though Andrew is under police supervision, he's not even really allowed to go out of the house without a chaperone. I think there's a good chance that he will evade justice by going to a country without an extradition treaty like Bahrain. And again, that may cause a huge public outcry, but the palace will say, I'm sorry, it's not our fault. And the whole question will be kind of minimized. And I think the hope is that circumstances will take over and Charles may die, there'll be a new king, people's anger about this will subside, and it will be business as usual.
You have been very outspoken about King Charles should abdicate in order to really make a cleanup in the royal family. But in your later issue, you said, well, William will not do anything different. There's only one way, going to a republic or going to a republic. It's not very easy constitutionally to change things for the royal family.
I haven't backed down from my position that Charles, if he's been seen to pervert the Court of Justice by basically protecting Andrew, which I believe he has, and being complicit in these crimes, in effect, shouldn't himself be held responsible. And if that's the case, I think public opinion will require him to in effect, resign, take responsibility. The hope will be that William is a reformer and brings in the changes that are needed. But I have my reservations that he will do that. But that doesn't mean that people don't hope that that's going to happen. It doesn't mean that the royal family will kind of hide behind that as a way of lancing the boil of this scandal. But there are plenty of things that can be done without moving to a republic. I'm not a Republican. I want a monarchy with some integrity and honesty that isn't corrupt. And there's some very easy ways to do that. For example, Parliament can vote themselves for more parliamentary scrutiny. It's only a convention that they don't ask questions. The government could bring in legislation for a royal register. It's been discussed in the past.
Mm.
The government could change the exemptions in the Freedom of Information Act, which basically have given the royal family cover up till now.
And it gave you a lot of headaches for the Mountbatten books, right?
Yes, well, all my books. I mean, they've hidden behind, they've refused to release things that they should have done under freedom of information. And the government are actually at the moment trying to lower the cost compliance threshold for freedom of information from 600 to, I think, £450, which would save them having to answer any questions at all. But so we've got parliamentary scrutiny, we've got Royal Register, we've got the freedom of information. We've also got the unsealing of royal wills. That's again in the hands of the government, nothing
Mhm,
to do with the royal family.
mhm,
We've got the Public Accounts Committee looking at the Crown Estates already.
mhm.
And I think there could be a wider examination, again through Parliament, of royal finances. At the moment, the sovereign grant, which is the money paid to the royals, is basically linked to a percentage of the profits from the Duchy of Lancaster and Duchy of Cornwall. And that's up for review next year. That could be changed. There could be a parliamentary debate on that. They could move to a strict just grant as opposed to a percentage of the monies earned. That has nothing to do with the palace. None of these have anything to do with the palace. There's also the Duchy of Lancaster and Duchy of Cornwall, which are supposedly owned by the royal family and which is exempt from a whole series of taxes, corporation tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax. Now, that I think probably would require the royal family to agree to make changes. So I'm not entirely sure of the constitutional position there, whether that can be imposed on them or has to be agreed. But
Mhm.
if the royal family are serious about modernizing, reforming, making themselves less secretive, and winning back trust and respect, and actually restoring any sort of moral authority, then it's in their interest to do that. To be honest, it's much more difficult to become a republic than to reform.
Of course,
Uh,
yes.
I mean, that would, I think, be a step too far for most people, and I think it would take up a lot of parliamentary time. So a lot of some of those latter things have to be voluntary on the duchies, but the rest are all down to the government. And I do think the government probably does have the will now to do it. They certainly have support from the population. And I'm just surprised that there haven't been at least some indications that reform is on the table. This as we see literally now every day, the royals are being heckled, they're being asked questions. No one is taking any interest in any of the work they do. They would be wise to accept the situation has changed. These reforms, which are long overdue, they should have happened in the last reign, but of course, because the Queen was there for so long and everyone wanted to leave it as it was, nothing happened. And I think the big question is Charles, though he's been ill, has now been on the throne for 3 years. Why hasn't he started any of these reforms? At the moment, it's probably the lowest nadir of the reputation of the royal family, I would say, since the time of Queen Victoria.
Wow.
But they can save the situation if they are prepared to deal with it. And at the moment, there are no signs that they are prepared to do that, unfortunately. But I've been talking to television programs even
Yes.
today who are doing some pretty hard-hitting investigations into royal finances. I know other papers are mounting campaigns about this. There are books about to come out. So it's not a scandal that's going to go away. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's drawing in more and more figures, in not just in the royal family, but elsewhere. And it's getting much, much closer to the crown. And as I say, Charles looks like being complicit in a cover-up. And that must worry them.
Okay, and my last question would be, this is the centenary year of Queen Elizabeth. Government has a lot of problems and issues with Foreign Office and Trump and Iran and everything. So, do you think these changes could happen if he's willing to do so? Let's be optimistic about it in this year, or maybe for the next elections, general elections in 27, 29.
Well, I think yes. I think, it's clearly. I think if there are discussions between the palace and 10 Downing Street, I say to lance this ball and say, look, we are looking at a whole series of reforms, which we feel will make the monarchy fit for purpose of the 21st century. They don't need to put anything in manifestos. They don't, I mean, they don't need to do it. They can just bring forward parliamentary bills very simply. But a lot of it is convention. It's a convention that politicians don't ask questions about the crown, but they can change that convention by just issuing new orders to what's called Erskine May and the vote office. So these are not big things that, taking taking Andrew out of the line of succession is a complicated parliamentary process, which I think is unnecessary, but also would be very easy if, like the Duke of Windsor, he voluntarily resigned his position in the succession. And there should be pressure being put on him to do that and make life easy for everyone.